Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew with Brews and Board Games, and I thought we would do something fun today. I thought we would try something a little bit different. I was recently on Board Game Geek going through the hotness section, and I saw this game that I haven't heard of before. It looked interesting. I clicked on it, saw the designer Cody Miller and the publisher Far Off Games, and I got excited. If you guys don't know, they also made a game that I really like, Xia Legends of a Drift System. I really like that game. That game, if you don't know, it's a space-themed game where you're in this galaxy. It's an open-world sandbox. You can go wherever you want to. You can play the role of whoever you want to. You can be like a smuggler, a pirate, a trader, merchant. You know, you can just battle people if you want to. Whatever you want to, that's what you can do. So when I saw that they were making this game called Arydia, is it Arydia or Arydia? I'm going to go with Arydia. I think to me, Arydia sounds a little cooler. Arydia, the Paths We Dare Tread. This looked really interesting. This is going to take the place of in a fantasy setting in this still open world campaign type game. So my interest is piqued. It got me excited. We don't know a lot about this game yet. There's only a few pictures. There's not a big description. So what I thought we would do is kind of go over everything that we do know from the description and the pictures, as well as look into those pictures, because I think there's some teasers in there, and I think it'll be fun to just kind of dive in, investigate a little bit, and just kind of theorize and give my thoughts about what we might be able to see in this game. And I think it is a fair comparison to use Xia as a reference point, because from what I've been seeing, it looks like they might share a little bit more similarities than we might see on the surface. So it's got me excited. And why I think that's cool is because if it is anything like Xia, using some of the mechanics from there in this open world setting, dude, I am really excited. Xia, I really like that. It's got excellent game modes. It's got an excellent solo play. So everything about it intrigues me. So here we go. Let's just dive right in. So let's scroll down, and right off the bat, we have description from the publisher, a green legacy game. Right off the bat, what is a green legacy game? I've never heard of it, so I had to look down. We click the more button, and we can see a green legacy game. Basically, Far Off Games kind of coined this term. It's basically a normal legacy game. You know, you're going to be having hidden information, opening up packages, progression, discovery, exploration, but you're not going to have to rip up anything. You're not going to have to throw anything out. So basically, at the end of that campaign, you're going to be able to reset everything to start a new campaign. I like that. That's a cool idea. So that is what a green legacy game is. So Arydia is an open-world campaign-based game, cooperative fantasy role-playing board game. Game is built on our four design pillars: exploration, progression, combat, and role-playing, similar to what Xia has, right? You can explore, go wherever you want to. Progression, you can level up your ship. Combat, you can battle other characters. And role-playing, again, you can take on the roles of other, you can be a smuggler, merchant, whatever you want. So starting off with exploration, Arydia is an open world to explore as you wish. Make your way across the world map, discovering new locations, interacting with memorable characters, fighting vicious monsters, and scavenging long lost treasures. So again, using Xia as a reference point, it's going to be open world, right? In Xia, again, you can go. Each time you go to a new location, you're going to have to reveal that location if it's undiscovered. And that could be anything. That could be dead space. That could be an asteroid field, a new planet, a sun, whatever. So I like that it's open world to explore as you wish, right? You can go wherever you want to. I think that's cool. I really like that sort of stuff. Sandbox games. Western Legends is like that, an open world sandbox. Those games are just cool. You're not limited to going in a linear path, right? So I like that stuff. Fighting monsters, cool. Scavenging long lost treasures, I like it. The world pulls you in through detailed descriptions and vivid artwork for each place you visit. Every location is unique, not randomized, and is built piece by piece as you explore. So if we look at this, every location is unique. Okay, cool. Not randomized. So that's a little bit different than Xia in that, like I was just mentioning, in Xia, if you come to an unexplored piece of space or that galaxy, I believe it's the galaxy. You explore that and you reveal a random tile that you shuffled earlier, and that could be anything, like I was mentioning before, a nebula, asteroid field, a planet, whatever. So this not being randomized, I don't know what to take away from that. It does says and is built piece by piece as you explore. So that would kind of lead into the Xayah framework, right? You're revealing it piece by piece as you explore, but not randomized. So I don't know if maybe that means in each scenario, the board is going to be laid out in a certain way. But maybe as you go to a location, it's going to be revealed. Maybe more, actions are going to be available to you. More characters, NPCs are going to be revealed, stuff like that. So maybe it's not necessarily that, the tile is different and revealed, but maybe something else is revealed. Progression, it says Arydia is played as a campaign over the course of a number of game sessions. Okay, you start each session right where you left off. As you play, the game keeps track of your actions and decisions. Your characters will grow in power, collecting new items, weapons, and skills. Okay, so kind of normal for a campaign-based game, right? You level up and stuff like that. In Xayah, you start off with a level 1 ship, and over the course of the game, you can level up to a level 2 and a level 3, getting stronger, getting different upgrades, so on and so forth. So maybe it's going to be similar to that. I'm not entirely sure. NPCs and locations will change depending on how you interact with them. All of this progression is done using a simple but powerful index system, which allows for quick and easy setup and teardown. Awesome. One of my biggest complaints with Xayah and why it doesn't get played as much is because there is just so much stuff in this box. There's so many baggies and stuff like that. Like if you don't have an insert for this box, this can be a chore to set up and tear down. We all have those games, right, where you probably would play that game more if it was easier to get to the table. So the fact that they are trying to make this index system, which allows for quick and easy setup and teardown, dude, I'm all for that. I think that is a phenomenal thing to shoot for in games, and I wish other companies would do that more. Now, I don't know if that's going to be more like an insert. That's one thing I would love to see more companies do, is add their own insert. I think that would, if you can get people to play your game more, they might be able to like your game more and maybe tell other people about the game. That's a huge thing in my opinion. Especially with so many games nowadays, you got to fight for that time from everybody. So having that insert can really help out. If we scroll down and look at combat, many of the locations you visit in Arydia are hostile. You'll need your weapons, skills, and cooperation to overcome the challenges you encounter. Okay, you uncover different challenges to be expected. Arydia features a tactical cooperative combat system. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Maybe you come across an encounter. Maybe everybody has a chance to attack, something like that. Enemies are controlled by game cards and dice while you and your companions work together to defeat them. What we're going to find out here coming up soon is that they are going to be using, at least from what I've seen, a D20 for some of the things in this game. Xayah used it. If you would uncover an event card or something like that, if you were in a planet and you went to leave that planet, you would roll a D20, and maybe like 1 to 3, I forget what the values are offhand. You would pass through and nothing would happen. Maybe like 4 to 10, you passed through, but you took some sort of damage. So they had that D20 system for a lot of different things. Asteroid fields were the same way. You would roll to determine what happens to you. So maybe it's going to be something like that as far as the combat. Maybe you roll a D20 and this happens, as we will see coming up here in a second. So combat, okay, using dice and cards. Okay, that's always good. Have some cards in there. Role playing. Take on the roles of a wide cast of characters as you encounter them throughout your journeys. Now, I think that bit is really interesting. Take on the roles of a wide cast of characters as you encounter them throughout your journeys. So what that means to tell me is that if you come across another maybe NPC at that moment, maybe something's going to come up where it's going to ask you, hey, do you want to play as this role? And you might be able to switch during the campaign, because then it says step into the shoes of a disgruntled shop owner, sniffling brat, or a poorly dressed bandit leader. So I don't know what that exactly means. Maybe that just means you're playing as your main hero, and then as you get to maybe like a town and you have this bandit leader or something like that, you'll be able to temporarily go into the shoes of him to, maybe perform some sort of action or complete a quest. And then maybe once you leave that town, maybe you're back to your regular hero. I don't know. Or you take on the role permanently from there on. I don't know. I think it's probably more of the first one, but who knows? In Xayah, like I mentioned earlier, you start off as a level 1 ship, and then you can get a level 2 completely different ship. Like, it's not the same ship leveled up to level 2. It's a different ship. So throughout the game, you're going to be getting different ships. So it could be something like that. The incentive-based roleplay system encourages you to engage in dramatic storytelling without being intrusive. Okay, so we know we're going to have some sort of story. We just don't know what that is. There is a little bit of information later on in one of the threads, which we'll take a look at, that basically just says there won't be a storybook for this. So it's not going to be like one of those binders that you open and you read from story, anything like that. So what that leads me to believe is that it's probably going to be uncovered through cards, which we'll also discover here in a second. So that is the short description that we have for the game. Now let's dive into the pictures. And this is where it gets a little fun. We can use some investigator stuff, right? To kind of look into it. There's some hidden stuff, but they didn't reveal too much. So it's pretty cool. So just jumping into it, let's look at the first picture here. Now this is going to be the image on the cover box, or on the cover of the box. So to me, this looks pretty cool. We'll try to blow it up. I can't blow it up anymore. You know what? Actually, yeah, because it gets huge. Let's back out. And for some reason, I don't have that scrolling bar on the side when I blow it up. So let's just increase the, decrease it, right? What am I trying to do here? Let's blow it up like this, and then let's take the size down. Okay, so let's just do it there. So I'm really getting messed up, huh? All right, so here we have the image for the box. Now this art is done by Mr. Cuddington, and you guys might know him. He also did the artwork for Title Blades. I really like that stuff. I think he did a phenomenal job, and this looks fantastic as well. We see our characters here. They got a fire going. They're cooking up something, and we can see one of them with the bow is pointing down towards the river. Now there are some boats down here. There's a little town, and as well as this castle up ahead, and then maybe another little town or fortification. So I don't know. It's just cool to look at the picture and find out, is the castle Arydia, like this little castle, or this is town? Is the whole land Arydia? Which I would think that is the case, but who knows? But I really enjoy this artwork. I think it's a really cool picture. Just to see all the characters and kind of get a grasp of like, this is kind of the world, right? Snow mountains, this castle, some plains, rivers, anything you can think of pretty much in a fantasy setting. I like that. So now let's look at this one real quick. We have some of the characters, and you have your generic fantasy characters, right? You got the dwarf and elf with the bow, probably like a rogue, a wizard, stuff like that. So that's cool. I really like the dwarf guy. For some reason, I'm like a fan of axes. I just think they're just badass, right? So I like this little dwarf guy. He's got this huge shield that's almost as big as him, and he's got this cool double-sided axe. I think it's cool. So let's go into one that's a little bit more interesting. So let's go into this one. If you guys don't know, this is Cody Miller, and he's holding the Arydia box here. Let's blow this up. So we can see that the form factor of the box is kind of like Xayah. Xayah has a box that's a little elongated, but it's not thin, right? It's not a long but thin box. It's still pretty thick because there is a ton of stuff in Xayah, just a ton of components. So what this leads me to believe is it might be similar in the amount of stuff you get in that box, and that's cool, right? There's a lot of goodness in Xayah. I really like that. So if there is that much in Arydia, I'm really excited. And I think the components are going to be on par with Xayah. So that's pretty cool. I like seeing that. And it does fit on the shelf if anybody is interested. So let's blow this up a little bit more, and let's take a look at this right here. So down in this right hand corner, this is pretty interesting. I don't know if this is Arydia on the table. I like to believe that it is. Like maybe they were testing some stuff out and somebody was like, hey, Cody, hold up the box for Arydia and we'll take a picture, right? Post it on BGG. So I would like to believe that's kind of what was happening right there. So if we do assume that, we can take a look at this picture and we can see some things on here. To me, and I encourage you to hop onto the page and look at some of these pictures, blow them up, take a look. I think this is a head right here. To me, this looks like a head. So I think ultimately this is a character board. So I think this is a head. So underneath, I'm assuming is like the body section. And then on the sides, if this is some sort of fantasy world, right, you're going to have swords, shields, whatever, armor. I'm thinking that maybe on the side is going to be like an arm section. So I'm thinking over the course of the game, you're going to be able to get these pieces and put them onto these certain spots to give yourself armor, you know, weapons and stuff like that. If we also look here, this looks like a cylinder kind of token. And why that's important, I'll get to in a second. And this also looks kind of like the same thing, maybe a little bit bigger. This just looks like a regular cube. So let's assume everything that I'm saying right now is correct. Again, I'm just speculating. And there's probably going to be more information coming out in the next few weeks until the Kickstarter drops, which I'll give you the date here soon. So let's just assume that I am correct. What Xayah did for their system, and I have a picture here for you. This is kind of your generic ship right here. So on this ship, you have a certain amount of spots on the ship that you can fill with upgrades as you go along in a game. And these upgrades have different layouts, right? You can see here, this is like 3 squares long and it has one sticking down on the bottom. This is a single. This is kind of like a square, like 4 squares and then one sticking out of the side. So you can kind of play Tetris with these upgrades. Also, on that note, you have these tokens right here. So what happens is if you want to activate one of these upgrades, you would take a token and place it on one of these orange spots, activating that upgrade. And that could be like missiles, you could fire a gun, boosters for extra movement, whatever. And then in a different phase, you would be able to replenish those tokens again. So I am assuming that if they try to take something like that from Xayah, maybe you slot, you know, your arm section with a sword. Maybe it has like 2 activations. You take the token, which we kind of see here, and you put it onto one of those spots. And maybe it has like 2 activations, you know, and then you roll a d20, you do some damage. And then later in a future turn or something like that, you can activate it again and then refresh it in another phase. I think that could work. I would like to think if they did do something like that, I would be interested. Again, I think they could make that work. Now, if we also look down here below the head, that looks like a bigger section. That almost looks like the size that you could use for a card. You know, maybe you get a card that's armor or something like that, has different values. Or you could also, like we were looking at before in Xayah, and maybe you'll have different size of these upgrades. Maybe it'd be like an arm chest plate or maybe like a pauldron, you know, and you can put it in here, slot it in different ways to then activate it for defense. I don't know. Again, I don't even know if this is for Arydia. I would like to think it is and just kind of playing around and say, hey, maybe it is what it is. But seriously, check out this picture. And if you guys see anything else, I would love to hear it. I'm definitely curious. So let's go into the next one. And this one's really cool because what we have here is some juicy designer notes. So we don't have much and some of this stuff is blurred out, but we do have some stuff that we can see. So let's go ahead and blow this up a little bit. And if anything is cut off for you guys, I do apologize. So right off the bat, we can see there is a hex drawn here. Now, we do know that there are going to be hexes in the game. But what exactly for? I'm assuming locations. And then what we have in the corner of this hex is it says socket for something. I can't read that word. So that's an interesting thing if like maybe a location has a little cutout for something to slot in there. I think that's a neat mechanic. They could probably do a lot of stuff with that I haven't really seen too much. So that's interesting. That's got me really curious to see that. And then if we look down here, I can't read what this says, but it says so cool. So obviously something that he likes. And if we go down a little bit further, we see wilderness deck and road deck. So if you guys know anything about Gloomhaven, Gloomhaven has separate decks for encounters. So you could have something if you're in the city of Gloomhaven or if you're on the road traveling to a new location. And those can be different things like, you know, you come across some bandits or something like that, and you have to perform, you choose an action, and then there is some sort of consequence or reward from that decision. I think this is going to be similar. I think you're going to have to draw a deck depending on what the hex is, right? Maybe you're in a hex that includes a town, or you're out in the wilderness and it's a plain field, or in the mountains. And you would draw these decks and then choose a certain one, and you would perform that action. So I think it's going to be something like that. Draw one per hex max, it says right here. And then it says once you've passed a hex, you shouldn't draw for that hex again. So what I'm thinking that means is, since it's an open world, maybe you can go like, you go onto that hex, you draw, let's say it's a wilderness card, you draw that card, maybe perform that action, or maybe you store it somewhere. Maybe you go to a different location, do that again, and maybe if you backtrack, maybe that's what that means. So since you've already drawn a card for that certain location, you don't draw that another card for it. So it's cool. I see other things like shuffling in, new cards, something old cards, removing old cards. I'm not sure. So I can't see too much else from that, but we do know there's going to be wilderness decks and road decks. Also, again, everything you're seeing is subject to change. But I think that's pretty cool to look at. Here we have, looks like some rough sketches for some of the characters. That's cool. We have some of the cover art that we saw earlier, as well as here and here as well. Now, interesting, in the middle, let's blow this up a little bit. We have an enemy. It's a little rabid rat, it says. So we can see here on the side, it has dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and endurance. All of them say a numerical value of 1. So it's kind of going to be like a D&D type thing, right? With all those attributes. I'd be curious to see what exactly they do with that. Special abilities, none. Combat actions. And this is where we get into the D20 thing. So combat actions, it says 1 to 6, flee. Move away. Come on, man, go away. Move away from, I think it says closest hero or chosen hero, something like that. And then 7 to 20, move towards closest hero and attack. And then underneath here, we can see what some of the attributes it has is. So we can see it has an attack value of 1. It says defense 0, HP 1, stuff like that. So in Xayah, used a lot of D20s for stuff that I already explained, right? If you're leaving a planet, you roll something to determine what happens to you. It looks like they're using a similar method here, at least for attacking. So we can see if the monster rolls a certain thing, and I would like to think maybe your weapons are going to do something similar, right? You roll a 1 to 10, maybe you do, 3 damage. If you roll a 1 or 11 to 15, you do 4 damage, something like that. But also it's using the D20 for loot. As we can see here, 1 to 10, nothing. 11 to, I believe that's 18. It looks like 1, maybe a piece of gold. And then 19 to 20 is like a chest. So you're also going to be using a D20 for that as well. Now, I don't know if there's going to be any other types of dice in here. The values, like a D6, a D10, anything like that. But we do know there's going to be a D20 in here. And then on this side, we can see this is either the front of the card or the back. It just gives a little bit of text for the rabid rat. And then underneath of here, we have some sort of track. Now, we don't know much more than that. And then we have a different enemy over here that is covered up. So just a cool picture. I love that there's like the designer notes on there. Again, it like gives you a little bit of a tease without giving you too much. Some of this stuff is blurred, I think on purpose, so you can't read everything. But it's really interesting. I like that sort of stuff. Let's go into this one right here. This is another cool picture. So right off the bat, we have this character here. You can see it's painted. It looks like maybe like a rogue type deal. We can see our D20 that we were talking about a few times already, so that confirms it, right? We see some XP tokens right here. We have this character card. I'm assuming it says race human, so there are going to be multiple races in the game. We also see this little section right here, this little space. I don't think it says LVL. I think it says EVE, like Eve something. And then it has an exclamation point. I'm not sure. But the board art, from what I'm seeing, looks pretty cool. Oh, we got it back. Yeah, let's get to here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but then this also looks like a pyramid. So I'm digging this right here. And if you can see these as well, these are like dashed lines. So I don't know if that's going to like separate the hexes, if that's what that is or not. But it's something curious to think about. And then the XP tokens, maybe after you kill an enemy, you get a certain amount of XP tokens, something like that. I think that's cool. And then also an important thing about the mini, you can see it's painted. There was a comment on a thread that we'll get to in a second, and they were basically asking Cody if that is a pre-painted mini, because if you guys also know Xayah had pre-painted minis for their ships, and it was a good job. The paint job on those was pretty cool, and there was quite a few ships in there, so that was awesome to see. And he basically responded that yes, those are going to be pre-painted minis. How cool is that? How many games does everybody have with those gray plastic minis? You're probably not going to get around to painting them. At least I'm not going to. I'm going to paint some, but most of them are going to sit unpainted. So to have more minis that already come painted is such a cool thing. It really makes the games pop a little bit. So I love to see that. And the paint job looks good. You guys can see here. I think that's a great job. And then in the background, we can see this guy has like a bow here. So cool. I really like that. Everything else is blurred, so I can't tell too much more about it. So pre-painted minis, D20, XP tokens. Awesome. So let's back out, and then let's also look at this picture right here. So we can see multiple decks. As we already kind of saw in the designer notes, there's going to be a wilderness deck and I think it was a road deck. Was it a road deck? Something like that. I would like to think this is probably the wilderness deck, right? You draw one of these cards. It has an encounter like we were saying. And then you have one of these is going to be the road deck, some other sort of deck. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe a monster deck, something like that. So we just get a little bit of artwork. I am digging that artwork. I think that looks really good. I'm loving the color scheme on there. I think that is a cool idea or a cool design. Again, Mr. Cuddington, if he did the work for these cards as well, awesome job. It does kind of resemble that, so I think that looks cool. And that's basically it for the pictures. Now we can go down and we can kind of look at some of the threads, because I think that's also important. So if we go down, let's take this back to 100%. Okay, so let's scroll down to the threads. So this is going to be launching on Kickstarter on August 3rd. Now, an interesting point was this game was supposed to launch on Kickstarter in 2018. 2018, years ago. So it's launching on August 3rd, which is very exciting. So my hope right now, and I've been comparing it to Xayah, as I've mentioned a few reasons earlier, but if it is anything like that game, I'm really excited. If they took anything from that, right? The multiplayer system in Xayah is really cool. I love the open world aspect. I love that you can play different roles. It's a huge world, and it has a great solo mode as well. A really fantastic solo mode. Also on top of that, if this game was supposed to come out, launch in 2018, that gives years more that Cody can tweak other things, add some things, change anything around that he deems necessary, improving the game a little bit. So I'm comparing it to Xayah because I think they're taking some things from Xayah, which is awesome. So taking it from Xayah and having years to kind of make the game a little bit better, that's what really is getting me excited about this game. I think based on that stuff, I think it's going to be a good one, and I'm really interested. If we go on here, we do have a link to the notification page for Kickstarter. I will put a link in the description below. So I encourage you, if this interests you at all, please go to that notification page, click to be notified, and you'll be set. Any kind of, when it launches, you'll be alerted. So I will put a link in the description below. If you want to see some snazzy pictures, we put them together in the Far Off Games newsletter. That's only the pictures that we already went over. They didn't add any new pictures. I checked. We have that one picture that we were looking at before. And I believe, yeah, this is the guy. So is that a pre-painted mini on the preview page? We can go down. This is from Cody himself. It sure looks like it, doesn't it? So that kind of confirms pre-painted minis. Really good. Really good. Really excited to see that. Also, if we go over, and there was a few other things that I wanted to look at. Let's go to playthrough. So again, we don't know much information about the game, right? We're just kind of speculating, having a little bit of fun. This person asked, will we be able to see a playthrough video during or before the campaign? And he said yes. Awesome. So during that time, we're going to be able to find out more information either during the campaign or a little bit before it. More information is always helpful, you know, to determine if we are going to back it, if we are interested, how interested are we. And then once that drops, I am going to do another video covering this because, again, I am really excited about this game. So that's great. They're going to have playthroughs. You're going to be able to see how the game plays. They're probably going to post the rule books. So we're going to have more information, which is always helpful. And I'm not sure if it was on this page or not, but there was one other thing about somebody mentioned the storybooks, and I was just going to go in and basically confirm that for you guys. So in one of these threads, maybe it is on this one. If I can't find, if it's not on this one, I'll put a link in the description below, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. I think let's try one more. Basically, it was just confirming there's not going to be that open storybook. Maybe it's this one. So let's scroll down here. And then let's see. Maybe it's not on here. All right, so I don't. It's got to be on one of these. I know it is. I mean, there's only a few of them that I actually looked at. Let's try this one. And this one's an interesting thread. This guy's going over basically everything he sees on the box, which is really cool. And then let's see here. Okay, here we go. So this is what I was looking for. So Cody has stated before, we won't see a campaign storybook. Okay, less space for text. All right. So maybe I'm assuming it's going to be driven by those cards, you know, and then maybe you'll have quests that you have to complete from those cards. I would imagine it's kind of going to have some story, but I don't know how much since it's not going to have a campaign storybook. So I'm not sure. And maybe that's how you can reset it and it'll be something slightly different each time. So those are basically the things that I wanted to show you. So again, I'm excited. If they can use some things like from Xayah, like I mentioned before, in Xayah, you know, if you're on a planet and you want to leave the planet has a force field, right? And you can only enter and exit from a certain spot on that planet. If you try to leave the planet from anywhere else besides that location, you have to pass through the force field and you roll a d20 to determine what happens to you. And then, so if it's a noble planet or a good planet, I forget the exact name, you might pass through that force field, but now you have a bounty on your head. You committed an illegal act. I think it would be cool to have that in Arydia as well. Like, can you imagine being in a town or something? You choose a certain maybe section on the road card. Maybe now you have a bounty on your head, right? Something like that. I can see that. Or you're playing the role of like, you're this knight, this noble knight. Maybe you find a thieves hideout or something on the board. And now you can kind of take out those thieves or bring them to justice, arresting them or something, you know, taking them to a different town. They're your prisoner, something like that. And maybe you earn points and then with, you know, that city or town because you turned in some bandits. I would like to see something like that. I think that's really cool. I think they can really make that work. So, and I could also see him using stuff like, you know, if you uncover, I know it said it's not randomized, but we don't know exactly what it's going to be. So maybe you uncover a mountain terrain or a river. Maybe you roll a d20 to, you know, you pass over the mountain or through the mountain, because in Xayah, each of those huge tiles is broken down into multiple little hexes. So if it's something like that, you know, maybe you uncover the mountain range and it's made up of like 20 hexes or something. And as you're passing through this mountain range, maybe you're rolling a d20 every time to determine what happens to you. It's kind of how it is in Xia. So I can kind of see that work in there as well. But I'm really excited. I think the theme is cool. Xia is a proven game. It's a really good game. And if they can take some elements from Xia, tweak them a little bit, you have 3 extra years than when you were going to launch it originally. I'm really excited. So again, if you guys are all interested, I encourage you, check out this page, be notified, subscribe to the BGG thing, go to the Kickstarter page, and like I just said, be notified. I'll put a link in the description below. But seriously, and if you find anything else, I would love to hear your kind of, you know, theories or anything like that, or what you would want to see in the game. Have you played Xia? What would you want to see that transfers over? I'd be curious to hear that. So again, I'm excited. I'm set to be notified. I'm going to be keeping my eye on this. And as we get more information in the future, I'll give some updates. And when it launches on Kickstarter, I will do a Kickstarter coverage of this. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you guys have as well. Jesus. So until next time, grab some brews, play some games. Thanks for watching and have a great day. All right, guys, take care.